Well, welcome. My name's Darren Fink. I'm with Transfiguring Adoption. It's a nonprofit program that strives to create media and resources for foster adoptive families to help them nurture and grow. And I was on Twitter, as I usually am, looking around at different resources and what people were saying, and I noticed this great resource that I thought that was it's a magazine that looks like it's written by youth for youth. And so I jumped on and I tried to message and got a hold of Virginia, who is the editor of Represent Magazine, and she's going to be talking with us today about this great resource. Virginia, can you just say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself and your job?
Sure. So this is Represent. It is a print magazine that has been in existence since 1994. It was spun out of a youth high school publication called New Youth Connections, which started in 1980. And it was started when the foster care population of New York City, which is where we're based, skyrocketed up to about 50,000 kids.
Wow.
In the regular high school writing program, there were all these foster kids who were ashamed to admit that they didn't live with their families. And so our founder, who's still here as executive director, decided to make a magazine particularly for foster youth. And so now we're more than 20 years old, and I believe it is the only national magazine of its kind.
That is phenomenal. So skyrocketed to 50,000 youth in New York. How were you guys finding out about the issues and things people were going through in high school?
Well, since the magazines have always been, the main content of the magazine is personal stories. So the kids were writing about it, and what everybody knew at that time was the AIDS epidemic and the crack epidemic, which both were leading to just many, many parentless children. I guess it came out maybe as kids talked to their editors, this is what's going on at home, but I don't know that I want to put it out there. So the idea was with their own publication, there would be less shame and stigma around something which obviously is not kids' fault.
Right.
And yet there's a real sense of shame about it.
So how does this process work? How do you find kids to write for the magazine, and what do they do once you find a foster youth that wants to write for the magazine? What's the process look like?
So the process is just great. I've been here now 7 years, which is by far the longest I've ever had any job. That's in part because it is such a great job. The youth find out about us by reading the magazine. There's a Write for Us with my contact info ad in every issue, but a lot of staff read the magazine too. So probably the most common route for kids in is a social worker or a therapist or a foster parent or a birth parent will call me up and say, I have a kid who loves to write, and we are big fans of Represent, and I think this would be great for this kid. Sometimes it's the kid, him or herself, who contacts me. But so I take everyone who's interested. There's no application process. So we have writers of very varying skill levels. And that's what I think is kind of a neat thing about the way we've set it up. The editors are all hired from the publishing, writing, editing world, not the social work world. So we tell the kids, don't worry about grammar and subject-verb agreement and all that stuff. That's what we do.
Right.
So a kid will come in twice a week. We have a little newsroom that's just filled with computers, and a kid gets assigned their own computer, and then they come in and they have their stuff lives there, and they just come in 2 afternoons a week and write. Well, we do a story conference. You know, the kid will sit down and I'll just talk with them for a while. Like, what's important to you? What would you really like to write about? And a lot of times they'll say, I would like to write my life story. And I say, okay, that's kind of big. Let's cut that a little. And so they'll talk and I'll be like, you know what, that actually sounds like that might be a nice little slice or an angle on your experience to make into a story. And then they go and they have their computers and we start with a story plan outline. They do that. I feedback on that. And then I'm networked to their computer, so when they leave for the day, I edit their stuff. So when they come back the next time, there's all these bold bracketed questions and suggestions. And so we have this real conversation back and forth through editing. And one of the things I love about the process is that kids are different. Some kids are going to want to sit in my chair in my office and talk through these things, and other kids who are more shy, we have the whole conversation with in print, with the edits and then the changes to the story. And a lot of times a lot of emotion comes up. There's certainly a fair amount of tears in the newsroom, and they know they kind of have this way they can kind of get to trust me over the writing, and then maybe come in and talk, or however they want to do it. And I like that they have that option of closeness because we do get close.
Right.
Talking about the most intense things that ever happened to them. And I'm editing in a way that's supportive and also helps them, I don't know if you noticed this reading the magazine, but helps them find their agency. So I try hard not to have the stories be, this horrible thing happened to me, and then this horrible thing happened to me, and then this horrible thing happened to me, and I'm sad at the end.
Right.
It's more like as they write, I'm like, well, look at that moment there. You could have gone in a couple directions. You did a really brave thing or a smart thing. You've actually made your story come out better, and they've gotten themselves in here, so they're already self-advocating, just by doing that.
Is it helping their lives, improving their lives? Do you see any stories of kids coming in where maybe they just don't have any self-worth, and is it helping them in any way?
I would say definitely. I would say for some of my writers, this is the only place in their life that's not chaotic. And for some of my writers, it's the only place in their life where an adult is nice to them. So those things are both huge. So we form a bond, and they know that there's this steadiness. They come in, I'm going to be sitting there, and they can always talk to me, and I'm encouraging. So there's our relationship, which I think is helpful. There's the processing the stuff in a therapeutic way by writing it. Like sometimes it was a secret, and then just being validated, like I get why that's private, but it's not your fault. You didn't, So to put it all out, one kid even wrote in a story about writing, which included his journal writing before he came. He said, I write everything down I've been through, and I look at it and I say, wow, that kid went through a lot. So it's really this kind of interesting thing that all writing does in a way, all personal writing. This stuff that happened to you, you move it out of yourself. So there's you, and then there's the work. And that's another part of what I think is valuable, is the pride in accomplishment. Right. We don't publish the stories until they're pretty good. So the kids have worked very, very hard. And so when I say, you know what, this is good enough for publication, I'm going to pay you for a completed story. We pay them. So that's always an exciting moment. They're sort of their entry into the world of being a professional writer. Here's your check. So I think all that stuff, like the therapeutic aspect, the connecting aspect with an adult aspect, the pride, the workplace. You know, they'll be on their cell phones in the newsroom and say, I can't talk now, I'm at work, or, you know, my boss needs a story. And yeah, it is. And so that, you know, that's another option that the kids have. And as they're going through the story, I remind them, we have all kinds of options. You could have your full name. You could have your initials. You could just have your first name. You could have anonymous. And I tell them, I'd rather you told the story as deeply and bravely as you can and be anonymous than not, but you don't have to say anything. Because I think that's kids who've come out of abuse and neglect, that's they've been robbed of choice. So that's another thing that I like to give them as much as I can. You know, I'll push if they're in a story, and you know, it manifests in all kinds of ways. Sometimes a kid will just flop down on the keyboard, you know, and I mean, you just see like, or run out of the office.
What's it like going from a newsroom full of professional adults to also overseeing kids that are dealing with some things right now? And like you're talking about, they might be confronting adults that finally care about them or are listening to them. What are the differences there?
You know, it feels good to be that person for them. I mean, it's painful sometimes. When I first had the job, I couldn't believe how sort of much sadness I was being bombarded with. And my self-care was I would go and I would watch hours of baseball. That's for some reason that just made me feel better. It's like green and it doesn't matter and nobody's getting hurt and it's not real life. Yeah, I mean, it's just more intense, more is at stake, and to me that makes it feel more important. So that's why I find this more rewarding. I mean, I still write, and what I had been writing up till this job more than editing. It's been a while since I was an editor. So, I like editing these kids more than any other editing job I've ever had.
Tell me a little bit about, after things get published and represents, where does the publication go to?
Yeah, good question. We have a subscriber list of about 7,000. It's a national magazine, so it goes to foster care agencies and family courts and you know, therapist's office, people who work with kids, and all our former writers, which now goes back 20 years. ACS in New York City, the child welfare government agency, has a $10,000 subscription, so they get it out to their various people. And then it's also all online. Everything that's in the print magazine is also online. And when we started out, we think about people reading it who don't have any money, you know, and don't have computers. And some of my writers don't have computers. Most of them have phones, but so it was always important to us that it be print. But now I think more and more people do read it online.
Who's the typical reader? What's the demographic that's reading represent? And what are some of the comments and feedback that you get from people?
Workers like the depth that the stories go, because the stories can go like 2,000 words or more, which very few magazines that aren't the New Yorker really do anymore at all. And they say they like that between the length and the sort of long editing process of the questions going deeper and deeper, they said that I'm working with a kid who has these kind of tantrums, or or starts fighting every time they start to trust somebody, or something like that, and they'll say, oh, in reading this story, maybe understand what's behind the behaviors of the kid I work with. This is actually the kid sort of getting a non-defensive way to explain their behaviors. So I kind of ask them not to sugarcoat, that I was fighting, I was doing a lot of drugs, I was cutting school, I was AWOLing, like all these things, and sort of try to connect those behaviors to their feelings. What was going on? Why do you think you did that? So it kind of illuminates the person behind the misbehaviors.
How would this be a resource for foster adoptive parents?
Oh, I mean, I think it would be great, because that's a lot of the stories are about going into a new home and what feels welcoming, what feels alienating, what's too much too soon. I would, if I was adopting, I would definitely want to re-represent, to know what they've been through and what they're longing for and what is off-putting. I mean, all that is, it's so, sometimes you just sort of like, gosh, it just doesn't take much, and yet some people don't do it. A lot of them will write about, wow, this foster mother actually came up to my room with me and helped me unpack. Like just these little things that you sort of are like, wow, who wouldn't do that? But some people do.
So there are other people that are on our website that they don't plan on adopting or fostering, but they want to help those that are. How can they help? Is there any way for them to get on board with what Represent stands for or is doing? What could they do to help you, or to, I don't know, resource, or is there anything the public can do?
We are foundation funded, and we are running a deficit. So if you want to help us, write a check. I mean, seriously, that's where
do they need to go to do that, or find out more information about doing that?
There is a donate page on our website, on the Represent a donate. I hope it's clearly right there on the, if you go to the Represent homepage, that it's not too hard to get to the donate button.
It looks like it's up on the upper right hand corner.
Thank you. Yeah.
There it is.
I think there's one down at the bottom too.
What if can foster or those that are trying to get their licensing right now, can they go to the website and get a subscription to Represent? Is that something
Yes.
they can do?
That also is you can do that on the website or write in from the print. Yeah.
Well, I think those are all the questions that I had. Is there anything that you want to tell, shout out to foster adoptive parents or people wanting to help?
I was really surprised by this job, how wonderful the teenagers in foster care are. And not all of them want to be adopted, but for those who do, it's just, I don't know, I think it could be, especially if you were a little older and maybe didn't want to go through the whole, baby stages. I would just recommend adopting a teenager. That could be, that they're really neat kids.
Virginia, thank you so much for meeting with us. I encourage anyone that's interested in this, you're doing a disservice to yourself if you do not go to the Represent webpage, and that website is representmag.org, and you can donate there if you want to help their passion, their mission to help these kids. You can also go on there to get a subscription, so that if you're getting your licensing or you are a foster parent right now and want to get inside a child's head and be able to help them better, you can get a subscription to this and read some of these amazing authors that are coming out of this magazine. I'm going to end broadcast, Virginia, but stick around. I'll talk to you real quick.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Darren.
We hope this has helped to nurture and grow your adoptive foster family, and we'll see you next time.